Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcasting is Praxist. I'm Rob, and I'm hosting today because both David and James are out for reasons. They may be in a meadow holding hands, or not. It's up to you. But otherwise, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm Alistair, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm Jamie, and my pronouns are he and
Also,
him.
how will we give? How has the viewer, or listener, I should say, got the power to determine whether or not James and David are in a field? I don't know how. I don't know why we've ceded that level of control of the podcast.
Is it me, or did Rob introduce us as podcasting as Praxist?
We are also Praxist, that is true.
Yeah, I'm not Praxist, but...
It's the new 21st century cooler version of Passadism. It's where next week we're just going to strap some mics to dolphins and just be done with it.
We've redesigned the pod logo. It is now just Podcasting is Praxist in fucking word art.
Yeah, we're gonna do Wingdings t-shirts and really make a fucking killing.
Oh man, yeah, let's do that 2003 level of humor that we all such big fans of.
Exactly, it's time for a comeback, baby.
If it's good enough for one of the richest men on earth, it's good enough for us.
Exactly. But we will be talking about him next week and not this week, because this week I want to bring an urgent matter to your attention. Apparently that the British people are bad at maths, and this is holding the country back.
Yeah.
This just in, the only thing that matters is if you can add, nothing else.
This is from an article in the BBC. Speaking in London to an audience of students, teachers and business leaders, a lovely combination, Mr. Sunak said children risk being left behind in the jobs market without a solid foundation in maths. There is a cultural sense that it is okay to be bad at maths, he added, which had left the UK among one of the least numerate countries in the developed world. Poor numeracy has provided a problem for employers, he said, and was costing the economy tens of billions a year.
I mean, we have no idea if that number's true, considering we're so bad at maths. No way to verify it.
Yeah. I hate this little fucking dweeb. Like, oh, people are bad at maths. Like, just fucking, do you know what I mean? Who gives a shit? Like, why do you need what do you need maths for at all? Like, I'm not even gonna like fucking do the old thing of, calculators were invented for a reason. But like, in 5 years' time, everyone's job is going to be typing in like fucking how do economy work into ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and then like implementing fucking like, you know what I mean, government policy based off what it tells you. So who the fuck needs maths? You know?
Yeah.
You'll be able to convince a computer that 2 and 2 is 5 soon enough, and that'll be all that matters.
Yeah.
Wait until they hook that fucking thing up to Trident. That's when the adventure will start.
Once they teach ChatGPT how to draw a circle, it'll be fucking unstoppable.
Yeah. I mean, we could just ban the wheel again. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Just on account of it being the demon's invention.
I know, like we're like into our third different conservative government or whatever the fuck, but like this is essentially the same government that did try to ban certain aspects of like the field of mathematics a few years ago because they didn't like encryption. So
that's true. Yeah.
Like far be it from me to accuse Rishi Sunak of being part of a government himself that is arguably innumerate.
It's also part of the same government that not that long ago, because I remember we talked about it on this podcast before, put out a series of ads with that ballerina on it saying, her next job could be in cyber, and I can't believe that series of ads didn't solve the fucking problem.
That's basically what this is about, though, isn't it? Because it's like, if you work in any kind of traditionally numbers-based field, like you're an accountant or a fucking hedge fund manager or you run a bank or whatever, you don't need to know how to like do sums because you've got like a fucking spreadsheet that does that for you. But what it is, if you want to code, you don't need to be able to do sums either, but you need to know like how the sums fit together so you can use them in your code. You can't ask a calculator how to write an equation for you. So like they just need more people to learn how to do cyber so they can finally break the one last fucking bulwark of high-paid jobs where they can't like fucking just get millions of people in to drive wages down. They keep trying to fucking like flood the market with coders. Everyone should learn how to code. And where does that get you? That gets you Elon Musk's Twitter.
I mean, I do wonder whether or not like the plan is actually that dastardly that they actually want to like drive down the market of like wage per hour for coders, or whether or not they have genuinely convinced themselves that if everybody learns the code, everybody will be like a millionaire, or like that there'll be a million Silicon Valleys.
No, I mean they've been trying for decades, because it's like you can nowadays you can find like tons and tons of coders everywhere, but like you can only find like the like a few good coders, you know. And if you want your fucking bank to work, you need people who actually like are good at the job.
Yeah, you need people who can code in COBOL and Fortran. Otherwise, the thing that makes £1 worth £1 just falls fucking over.
Those are the two creatures that infest the Nashkel mines, right? Just so I have it correct in my head.
But yeah, when you get like a bunch of fucking idiots that don't know how to code together and let them do high stakes financial transaction shit, you end up with like all those NFT contracts that were exploited.
I mean, don't worry about it though. There have been there are some solutions coming out of all of this. It's not just a speech. Apparently, the first plan is there's going to be another council involving some business people and some other people and some education experts. I really do have fear in my heart already to come up with some proposals, presumably not ones that include.
Is this going to be
money.
that fucking awful Catherine Burble saying that maths is no longer woke, so people need to learn how to do it?
It's probably the math teacher at her school, presumably, yes. I mean, it will definitely be someone from like Toby Young or something will be involved in some manner. This is also this is fucking incredible. Do you want to know how we're going to get the youth of tomorrow into the classroom to do more maths? Because we need people to do it.
Is it making classrooms smaller, training more maths teachers? Is it things like that?
No, we're going to change the building sets, which I assume is the teaching material, for schools to include calculating the angle of free kicks or the speed of a Formula One car.
Wow!
Oh, this is a fucking revolution in education.
Yeah. See, the problem with teaching maths so far has been that it's just like not been cool enough.
Yeah, they should teach you how to like crack the encryption on your Sky TV box or something. Kids would take an interest then. And how to like siphon someone's bank account.
I mean, that's what
teach you the math needed to break into PayPal.
I mean, that's not even that hard. Like, you're better off with like a language degree, so you can just do like social engineering. That's like way easier rather than like learning how to crack like the whatever on someone's PayPal account. And apparently, we're also going to tackle, although that was undefined as to how that was going to be done. The government is going to tackle the UK's anti-maths mindset, which is
oh fuck me.
Yeah, just mobs of people like roving the streets, like looking at anyone that's got their phone out, so that doesn't have a fucking calculator on it, does it?
Yeah, but not enough people use that calculator, I think, is the problem. We're not in love with the calculator as much as we are with, I don't know, Angry Birds or something. I'm reaching to like an antiquated metaphor. Yeah, this, of course, despite, which was the obvious answer to all of this, is that the government the Tory government for the last decade hasn't hit any of its targets for like hiring new maths teachers. Because like if you have a university degree in mathematics, why would you go into a classroom when you can do literally 100%. Anything else for 50 times the fucking money?
Yeah, like just go and do what a bunch of people that I know that did maths do, and go and work for fucking like weapons manufacturers and do a bunch of coding for them. Yeah, that's and get paid like 60k a year. Why would you do that when you could work 70-hour weeks for like 32k as a relatively newly qualified teacher? Like, it sounds fucking awesome, right?
Yeah, I mean, although there is going to be like they're going to develop a little workaround for this, which is incredible, because apparently like almost 90% of all secondary school math lessons are now taught by somebody who only has like an A-level qualification of their own. So like, but according to the education secretary, Gillian Keegan, this comes from The Guardian.
Do you know what? I have not heard of Gillian Keegan since until like yesterday. Which is a really good sign, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that also means, I mean, I'm sure she was really busy, resolving the massive teacher strike at the moment, or not. But yeah, anyway, what she said is, look, instead of maybe like getting people with actual maths degrees in the classroom, she said another route was maths and physics teaching apprenticeships, saying that's going to teach those young people who want to earn and learn at the same time and not go away to university, or people who need to earn and learn who want to do teaching as a second subject as well.
Look, I mean, I am absolutely all for people being able to do apprenticeships and actually get paid, like, not the fucking poverty wages that people who are typically on apprenticeships get.
Yeah.
But those are for jobs that aren't quite literally conceptual, like mathematics and physics. I mean, dude, come on. You're going to be sat at the back of a classroom with all the other kids looking at what, like, learning how to do maths to teach to the kids in the classroom?
I think like see one, do one, teach one is not quite a method you can use for like mathematics. Like I'm happy to be corrected, but like I have my fucking doubts. Yeah, anyway, of course, you know, on the other side, instead of paying people, which is the obvious answer if you want more people with STEM degrees in the classroom, hooray and correctly, teaching unions have just rejected the 4.3% next year pay rise, which was the government's star offer.
Fuck all.
Sorry, Jamie, I should say they would also have gotten £1,000 each this year as a bonus.
Okay, well that is also fuck all.
Oh wow, a one-time payment for prices that have permanently increased by anywhere between 10 and 20%.
Yeah,
fucking awesome. Yeah.
But next year, Alistair, you have to give these things time. It gets better, by the way, because
by next year, like a fucking £1,000 gonna get you like one big shop at the Tesco.
if you're lucky, it might get you like one pepperami. It's gonna be it's
yeah.
But
what
like
a pepperami though.
you find a golden ticket inside your pepperami, and that means you get exclusive access to the math apprenticeship.
Imagine if you opened a pepperami and like the one inside was that little fucking cunt with the arms and legs off the advert. Just having to like fucking brain it on the kitchen counter before you eat it.
No, you don't want to do that. You want to put it in a box and then sell it on eBay for like 30 grand. Like that guy with the Dorito that was puffed up.
Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to like our new hunter-gatherer society where we have to band together to like herd some pepperamis into a corner and then beat them to death. That's going to be an incredible society to live in.
Well, it's either that or the fucking cereal aisle. So.
Yeah, but we're going to redo farming from the ground up, where it's like 50% cereal.
That's usually where it
50%
starts.
Pepperami farms.
Hey.
But yeah, this fucking insult of a 4.3% pay rise next year gets even better though, because I was reading some of the fine print on it, and apparently the government thought that like this generous offer could come mostly like out of existing school budgets, so they didn't have to pay the schools anything extra anyway. And I'm sure like schools just have that money coming out of their ears. I'm guessing. I don't know this.
It's just, I mean,
do the kids really need dinners?
It is fun to see these overlapping crises in various parts of the British society just all coalescing into one big, I don't know, the next guy can deal with it. That's the solution to, like, the fact that we have not invested in schools whatsoever. We've academized, like, 90% of the fucking things at this point. All sponsored by McDonald's and Carpet-Rite or whatever.
You remember that cheery report from a while ago where it was like BAE Systems was helping like get material into classrooms?
Oh boy. But yeah, like let's not tax any of the fucking pricks that are going to sponsor any of these academies that we've got. Let's just spreadsheet McFuckstein the current things that we're paying for, so that we can just say that we've technically given teachers a pay rise without improving any of the fucking problems that currently being faced by the entire education sector.
Yeah, I mean, and on that note, that's quite a good lead-in, actually, to, like, shall we discuss a slightly longer, more involved main story where we get to find out what happens when you do exactly that, when you do just, like, numbers fuckstein for a really long time. You know, you've done a lot of fucking around, and the finding out has happened. Shall we find out what happens when that happens at the council level? Because, we're about to have council elections. So I thought I'd tell you the tale of what happened to Thurrock Council. Thurrock City or Thurrock County Council?
Thurrock Council. It is not a city. It is like a pretty big area, relatively speaking, in Essex.
Yeah.
Covers like Grays, Corringham, Stamford, pretty much all the way out to just outside of Southend and like north of Basildon up to Orsett.
Yeah, it's like a big belt south of London, right?
East of London, yeah. My former haunt for about 27, 28 years.
Well, I mean, given that you used to live there, can I say well done on your escape? Because the end of this story would have impacted you had you still lived there. So
don't worry, I am very relieved to not having to be living in Basildon anymore.
So first, before I get started, like a big, huge fuck off credit to like Gareth Davies and several other investigative reporters at the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. They were like by far the main source for everything that I read to prepare for this. And they have spent years and a lot of their money on Freedom of Information Act and suing Thurrock Council to get the story out of this. So, big credit to them. If I remember, I'll put some links to some of their stories in the show description. Definitely go read some because they've really done amazing work on this. So, just good journalism does occasionally occur, and this is definitely one of it. I'm assuming most people either skipped, didn't see, or why would you be interested? But at the end of last year, in December, technically, Thurrock Council went bankrupt. The technical term is when a council goes bankrupt is a Section 114 notice where it said to the central government, we are in such a grave financial position, we will not be able to dig our hole out of this one. We need the cavalry. They weren't lying about that.
Oops, Thurrock Council did a fucky wucky.
Quite a massive one. The fucky wucky was a 470 million hole in its annual funding. With more to come.
That's nothing, surely. The government will just happily throw you like a couple of billion for fucking like a PPE bonfire. Well, or some
considering
shit,
it is a council that is like 2/3 Tory seats, that would surprise me.
There you go, then. Yeah. That's a piece of piss. That like
it hasn't. It hasn't quite.
Somewhere up north can just lose a hospital. Problem solved.
It has not quite shaken out that way because essentially, while this is a Tory council being investigated also by another Tory council and getting money from the Tory government, they're not being bailed out to the tune of PPE or anything. So essentially, apart from saying to the government, help, we don't have any more money, a Section 114 notice does several other things, but the main thing it does, it says anything that is not on a list of truly essential services has to stop and be defunded straight away. Things that are still included.
How is that different from any other day?
Because this really cuts everything, everything to the bone and beyond. In terms of councils, some of them still have some discretionary spending. This cuts all of that out. And when I say discretionary, I also mean things like parks or maintaining a community center. All those things are no longer available.
Don't worry though, because not only are all these vital services having to be going to have to be shut down because of gross financial misconduct, they are also essentially of their own free will. I think they have closed down one hospital, A&E, are trying to close down a second, making Basildon Hospital the only A&E in I don't know, it's like a 50 or 60 square mile radius. It's fucking ridiculous.
But I mean, come on, how sick can you be if you need to get to hospital? Just perk yourself up a little bit.
As someone who has previously spent a great deal of time visiting people in Basildon Hospital, you do not want to spend any more time in there than you fucking have to.
No, certainly not. Anyway, so today...
Yeah, but it's supply and demand. If you build hospitals, people will get sick.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just how it works.
I didn't know you were an American, Jamie. When did this come in?
So today we're going to talk a little bit about council funding, what the fuck happened in Thurrock, where some of the money went, and the end result of all this. So unfortunately, first I have to, for this story to make sense, I have to I'll do this as briefly as I can. I have to explain how council funding works in general, because otherwise the rest of it won't make any sense. Basically, as of today, this is from the Institute for Government, the council funding works as follows. Roughly 50% of it comes directly from council taxes. About 27% comes from business rates. So councils don't send all of it to the treasury; they get to keep a portion for themselves. And about 23 to 25% comes from grants from various funds and stuff from the central government. That's way less than it used to be, but that's sort of the mix how it works. So council tax being 50% is that's the huge chunk. It's very important for councils to make their money. And a critical point is, according to the legislation as set out for local councils, councils are not allowed to run a year-on-year deficit ever. They're not allowed to be in the red. They must either be neutral, or if they do end up short on like year-on-year funding, they need to draw on their own reserves that they have presumably still left from all the fat years that, of the previous 10 to 15 years. I assume they still all have some money somewhere. They are, however, allowed to go into debt to do like big capital expenditure. So like if Thurrock were to, say, build a new hospital, they are allowed to like borrow money. Or whatever, some kind of business.
I'm sorry, it was literally laughable about the idea of Thurrock Council, County Council, trying to actually do something good.
Yeah, or like a business park for fake PPE businesses, or a new pub for Matt Hancock, or whatever. Like they are allowed to run up debts, but only for big capital expenditure, not for day-to-day runnings. Just as a side note, UK councils have in contrast to like most of the developed Western world, a hugely low ability to like raise revenues on their own or raise taxes locally. And since austerity, so roughly 2010, on average, councils have lost already about 16% of their spending power, but gained a lot more responsibilities. They have to do a lot more with a lot less. However, like I said, they are allowed to raise their taxes, but according to, I can't remember when it was introduced, councils are not allowed to raise council taxes by more than 2% a year without holding a public referendum on it.
Oh, cool.
Which, although weirdly enough, Westminster can change and does change this percentage essentially on a whim. Like under Theresa May, they said, "Oh, you can do it up to 3% for a while," and then Boris came in and said, "No, it's 2% again," which is just incredibly fucking weird.
It is extremely good that our extremely centralized government have laid a bunch of responsibility on the closest thing to we have like local government, and yet zero ability for them to actually raise any funds to do anything themselves without literally the government going, actually, yeah, you can have like 50 million quid to have a bunch of squash courts installed at Eton or whatever the fuck. But say you want to build a library, go fuck yourself.
I mean, you say that, so in order to, the central government, pricks though they are, did recognize that this whole, less money, more responsibility represents a bit of an issue for a lot of councils. So they said, well, you can do something else to make up for all these cuts and shortfalls. And that is, you are allowed to invest
in a timeshare.
Pretty much. Councils are allowed to invest in commercial real estate ventures, both inside their own borders and beyond.
Wow.
So, I mean, some of that, look, as long as we have capitalism, that sort of makes sense. It's like, the council wants to build a new shopping center in the middle of town to attract business. They need to do capital expenditure, so they need to be able to, borrow and invest. So, in that, that's...
Just that, again, a laughable thought, considering what Basildon town centre looked like last time I walked through there, with about 40% of the shops with fucking boarded up windows.
Sure, I mean, but I'm saying that's the most positive case. Obviously, most of the time they simply don't.
Best case scenario, you can end up with 4 Greggs, 3 McDonald's, and a Burger King in your fucking town centre.
Yeah. Well, in my fiance's hometown, even the Costa Coffee is left, which is fucking incredible. It's I didn't know that was, possible. So they can, they are allowed to invest in commercial real estate. So straightforward stuff, they can just help develop a business park and then they get some rents out of it. They can fix up existing real estate. So like I said, if there's an old shopping mall from the 1970s, they can do it up and then hope that, I assume a betting shop or something along those lines comes into it and they make money from that. Or they can do something else, and this is the most relevant for the rest of our story. They can enter into more speculative developments, harnessing the local authorities' good covenant, which means they can lend out money on the credit of the council.
Rob, why are we telling local councils to make essentially risky investments in
property,
like at best dodgy investment opportunities and not to invest in things that people might actually use, such as council houses, like things that actually provide something of a return to the fucking local council? No, we can't be having any of that. What you have to do is you have to funnel all of your fucking hard fought for council tax rise not profits, but tax income into insane business ventures. Hell yes, let's do that.
I mean, certainly, like that's.
Why do you hate small businesses?
Yeah, why do you hate Mavis, the small landlord who just wants to develop some properties? And furthermore, not only are councils allowed to like spend money in this way by like doing speculative real estate ventures, not just themselves, they're allowed to invest in other people doing them. They are also allowed to borrow money for that purpose, for any purpose relevant to its functions or the prudent management of its financial affairs. So what councils are allowed to do is borrow a shit ton of money, then invest that into a real estate scheme, and then hope it pays off in the future, and thereby making up for like a shortfall in council taxes or something along those lines. That's not at all a hint of what's about to happen. Not only that, it gets even better. Councils can also, like, they have to be in line with certain accounting principles, etc., as well as the prudential code. I didn't look into what that is because, quite frankly, I only have so much attention span. But councils can also, in terms of how much they borrow, they can set their own borrowing limits, mainly relying on like the financial teams and the professionals working for the council to do numbers fuckstein and say you can borrow up to this and that's a healthy amount and not above that, because then there's a problem.
just a fucking bunch of fucking civil servants sitting in an office just saying, "Got to spend money to make money, baby," back and forth to one another.
I mean, all councils are heavily incentivized to do exactly that, to basically build luxury flats, hope it pays off so they can keep the library open. That's like
build luxury flats and immediately fucking sell them off to some private investment vehicle, right? Just
yeah. And also remember, like I said before, councils are never ever allowed to default. They can only go into debt as it relates to capital expenditures, so building luxury flats or getting into a scheme to build luxury flats. So if you're the developer or you have like a scheme. Again, I'm just not prefacing anything. And if you can get like the council to put its money up, pretty much anybody will be in it because they'll know they're going to get their money back because the council can't go into debt. The council is like legally mandated to always pay its debts back. So
I can't possibly see any ways for this to go wrong.
No, anyway.
No, this sounds absolutely bulletproof.
Anyway, let's talk about Thurrock Council and see what they did and how that turned out for them.
This chapter is titled "You Can't Do That. That's Illegal."
This is from the opening of one of Gareth Davies' very good articles on the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. This is the opening. As he was chauffeured to the airport where his private jet waited, Liam Kavanagh reflected in typically colourful language on how much his life had changed. "Look at what we're doing now," he told his personal assistant. "You're driving a fucking van to the airport with Kavanagh after 10 years of meeting in fucking car parks, smoking a fag, all the shit we've gone through. It's insane." And Liam Kavanagh is like the star character of what's about to happen, because Liam Kavanagh had an investment scheme that ran a series of mainly solar farms. And they essentially drained a whole bunch of money out of Thurrock Council. He's very much a name to remember for the rest of this story, Liam Kavanagh. So that money, according to the Bureau of Investigative Journalists, helped for him personally, for Liam Kavanagh, fund a fleet of very nice luxury cars, a 200-acre county estate, as well as either use of or his own corporate private jet. So he made quite well out of all of this. So what happened?
Interesting when the main problem with solar farms is getting the actual capital to build the farm in the first place, and then afterwards you have a relatively low maintenance source of electricity. How can one fuck this up, one might ask?
Well, I mean, there are or were legal proceedings going on about the state of the solar farms when Liam Kavanagh bought them himself, that they might already have been defect and in not good working order in the first place before they were marketed as a big investment tool to Thurrock Council, and pretty much only Thurrock Council. It's an interesting side note. So before it all ended in massive tears at the end of last year, and certainly currently this year, Thurrock's council, led by the Tories, loaned Liam Kavanagh's different companies about £655 million. With that, almost 600 plus million pounds, he built an empire of solar farms. And according to the TBIJ, at least 138 of that million of that money is currently missing. Nobody's quite sure where it has ended up. And I should say, according to Liam Kavanagh and also his lawyers over at Carter Ruck, he claims no responsibility. He said he has always done the right thing and that he is cooperating with different investigations. So we need to be very clear on that we are not assigning blame.
All I'm saying is I'm not at all convinced by someone saying I've always tried to do the right thing.
Yeah. So like in terms of how much money was spent, so just to put it in context, like I said, they gave slightly over £650 million to this guy to buy to go into an investment on solar farms with. Thurrock Council itself, before it blew up, spent about £150 million a year on all its local services in total. So they'd given this guy like more than 4 years worth of annual budget.
I mean, just on the face of it, this is fucking insane.
Yes.
It
also, by the way, very happily for the Tories on Thurrock Council, allowed them not to raise council tax for a really long time because they and their financial officer, Sean Clark, also a name to remember, were going to make so much money with these investments in solar farms that they didn't need to put up council tax. Presumably, this was a selling point in local elections. I don't know, but given that they're Tories, I'm willing to make that bet. So the first deal, which is done through Kavanagh's company, a company called Rockfire Capital, was a co-investment not just with Thurrock, but also Warrington and Newham councils for a big solar farm in Swindon. Basically, what happened is the Rockfire Capital bought these with money from these councils. They bought the solar farm, and in exchange, the councils received a series of bonds, which would mature in 5 or 6 years, by which time they would get all like their investment money back, and then afterwards they would get, and in the meantime, they would get regular interest payments as the solar farms produced energy and money, etc., etc. Most of these bonds are currently set to expire in 2027 and 2028, but the value underlying, i.e. the value of the solar farms, may have been somewhat overstated.
Oh boy, you really do need like an entire team of lawyers behind you to crack any fucking jokes about that.
Yes, very much so. And since we don't, we shan't. So there is already a high court case between Liam Kavanagh and the previous owners of these solar farms, where he is or was suing the company, saying that the solar farms were already blighted by defects and worth substantially less than what he paid for them, or at least I should say that what Thurrock Council paid for them through him being the intermediary. Again, this is through reporting from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. So this deal, together with all other future deals relating to Liam Kavanagh and solar farms, was put together by the finance director of Thurrock Council, a guy called Sean Clark. That's the other name to remember. The two big names are Liam Kavanagh and Sean Clark. The rest is fine. And also, like I said before at the start when we were talking about how county council funding works, in most councils, it is the finance director and the chief executive who set the borrowing limits for the council as a whole, like what is prudent. So if one guy, let's say Sean Clark, gets sort of enchanted, bewitched, or thinks that there's a good investment to be done with these solar farms, and he goes slightly crazy, then the person keeping him in check is Sean Clark and the council.
Maybe it's just like the scene in Clockwork Orange, but instead of like having your eyes held open to like a bunch of distressing images, just a bunch of different solar farms that you could be investing in.
Yes. So, according to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, Kavanaugh and Sean Clark had developed a very close and happy relationship, including many sort of happy lunches in London's Mayfair district, where, like, when Sean Clark would go out there to, like, check on the money or whatever, his team would literally say to each other, "Oh yeah, the boss is off to London to see how the gambling with our money is going." And so somewhere between late 2018 and early 2019, after having already put up a huge amount of money to buy the initial solar farms, they stump up another £138 million for Kavanaugh and Rockfire Capital to improve the series of solar farms they had already bought. This, by the way, was truly incredible because, like, again, 138, that's about the annual budget of the whole Thurrock Council for everything that it does operationally that actually is supposed to benefit its citizens. Again, this is, I'm quoting from an article from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism again by Gareth Davies. The only basis for the £138 million top-up was a short report produced on behalf of Rockfire Capital, Liam Kavanagh's company that marketed the bonds, in November of 2018, that claimed that the sites had substantially increased in value since they were purchased a year or so earlier. If this were correct, that putting in more money would increase returns and, provide little extra risk. However, that was also...
Hello, Rockfire Capital. What's your source for this? My sources are made it the fuck up.
Not necessarily that they made it up. For legal reasons, we definitely cannot say that, but...
You can't take a fucking meme to court, probably.
However, amazingly, and again, like we're talking about, I should stress this again, we are talking about an amount of money that is pretty much the annual operating budget of the whole council. It appears that neither Thurrock Council and its councillors and the Tory party in charge of it, nor Sean Clark did any additional homework. So the Gareth Davies and the guys at the Bureau talked to the actual day-to-day manager, the guy who was actually, I don't know what you do day to day on a solar farm. I assume just like spit and polish and, tighten up some wires and stuff. So they spoke to that guy who confirmed to them that no one on the council, nor anyone actually representing them, had actually visited any of the sites, asked for any of the contracts or the performances to date, or basically did any due diligence whatsoever. They just, when this guy Kavanaugh said, "Oh yeah, we've done amazing work," they just went, "Yeah, sure, that sounds..." They just took his word as read, which is incredible when you think about the amount of money involved.
Yeah, I mean, like, considering, like, again, like, casually spending 4 times of your annual operating budget in one fucking go, or broken up into a few smaller pieces, and just going, "Yeah, no, sounds good, mate. Yeah, why have you sent me this JPEG? That's the report. It just says it's going well. All right, cool. Thanks, mate."
Yeah, but truly, like, I mean, if nothing else, that's like an incredible amount of just like casual negligence. It's like if I personally loaned someone, I don't know, a substantial amount of money, like more than my monthly income, at some point I'd be like, "Can you actually pay that back? And what are you doing with the money?" And, like, you would just check. And that's just me, and I don't earn that much fucking money. Anyway, so furthermore, neither in the original like 300 million buy that was loaned to Rockfire Capital and Liam Kavanaugh to buy these solar farms, nor the 138 million top-up loan, did Thurrock Council feel at any point like obliged or morally or spiritually responsible for like informing the general public of what they were doing. I mean, they were under no legal obligation to do it, so they didn't have to. But, they just didn't do that because they didn't have to. So they were like, well, why bother? Also, why bother involve, like, telling, apparently, the Labour opposition what the plan was and what they were doing and on what scale. This was just like from what I understand and how I've read it, this was very much an internal matter. However, of course, having loaned somewhere in the order of 500 million to this guy for these solar farms at this point, towards 2018, people were starting to ask questions, because that's, those are big numbers on a relatively small council budget. And again, I'm reading from both a report done by the BBC as well as the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. In March 2018, the financial advisors, Arlene Close, wrote to Sean Clarke personally to express urgent concerns about the council's extreme appetite for risk. The company felt that this risk was well beyond that of all its other clients, even those who had adopted relatively aggressive strategies. The letter listed a series of risk areas, including the £370 million investment in unrated bonds, that's the solar farms, high levels of debt, and huge exposure to local authority funding. It also noted that the company's advice had either been ignored or we have simply not been consulted. So this is the council's own external financial advisor saying, we don't know what you're doing, you're scaring the shit out of us.
We hate to see woke risk management companies and advisors being ignored when globe-bestriding, forward-thinking Tory councils are trying to invest hundreds of millions of pounds into...
In green technologies, no less.
In green technology, yeah, green jobs. All those things that you wokeists want. Just disgraceful, really.
Instead, what happened was a year later, so a year after sending this letter, Thurrock Council chose to fire Arlene Close, but continued to invest and borrow money to invest with Liam Kavanagh as well as others in another series of catastrophic investments.
That's fucking amazing. I do not like you constantly bringing up the fact we're ignoring you, so you're sacked.
Yeah. Or possibly, but I can't state this as a matter of certainty. Sean Clarke and his team were not very happy with these people saying, what the fuck are you doing? And they wanted to pick some other people. However, everybody was getting a bit nervous, so Thurrock Council did contract a different set of advisor called Camdor Global, who went again to this day-to-day manager of the solar farm and then confirmed that this company, the one that was actually running the solar farms, had never received any of the £138 million of the top-up loan, and that therefore no improvements had been made because they didn't have the money to do it. It should be stressed, because these things are under court proceedings, that this specific company called Toucan Energy, not to be confused with the later Toucan Energy related company, but this one, neither the manager, a guy called Dan Kirk, were involved in anything shady so far as we know, apart from just running the actual solar farms bought by Rockfire Capital with money from Thurrock Council. It is not the fault nor the problem of the people who were, like I said, polishing the solar panels and tightening the wires. Now, seemingly, almost £140 million have vanished, and that's not just a problem because the money's vanished, because like a year's budget has vanished. It's also a problem because if the upgrades weren't done, then the site isn't worth 140 million more than the original asking price, and that means when you sell the farms at the end of when the bonds mature, Thurrock Council can't get its money back because the underlying asset isn't worth what's set on the paper. They're not worth the money that is being expressed. Again, this is according to documents seen by the Bureau. According to the second company that did an actual inspection for the first time, the Camdor, the difference between the value printed on the bonds, so what they say the solar farms are worth, and the estimated real value could be as much as £200 million. So that's just like a straight up loss of £200 million on a really bad investment. So we don't know where the missing £138 million went. We cannot speak to that.
I've got it. It's buried in my garden.
Not again, Jamie. Come on, we've talked about this before. Come on.
You get hired on to guard one ditch, and you just start getting ideas, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine just having that much money to just piss into a void?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
must be fucking nice.
In a related case made against Liam Kavanagh in the UK High Court, and again, I'm citing the Bureau of Investigative Journalism here, The court also heard an allegation that Liam Kavanagh treated his businesses as a personal cash point. The allegation was made in messages sent by a director of one of his own companies, who later told the judge that Liam Kavanagh had taken out large sums of money at short notice and with little explanation, and suggested that some of it may have been used to buy cars. Of course...
Do you know what? That is just the single most fucking Thurrock thing that I could possibly think of. Like, it just absolutely to a T, that is something that would happen in Thurrock.
Again, I should stress, Liam Kavanagh and his lawyers at Carter-Ruck deny all this happened, and this podcast cannot know for certain. We are merely repeating things that have been in print before.
If it did happen, it does not surprise me in the slightest.
So the Bureau of Investigative Journalism got their hands on a dashboard cam. This is the same thing where I read the quote from at the beginning, where he said, "Look at how crazy my life has gone." So this is a recording that took place right after the first piece on all this missing money and the solar farms and Liam Kavanagh is printed by the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. So this is right after. This is from a dashboard cam. I'm quoting from the article. He said he needed to protect everybody's interest and the money and get rid of Rockfire Capital and another company we'll talk about later called the Rockfire Investment Finance. A bomb got dropped with the fucking article shit, but this is Liam Kavanagh. I've made up my mind. Wind up Rockfire and start selling assets. Restructure. He went on to say, I'm not bothered now. I'm never going to raise another pound from a local authority again. After appearing to receive confirmation that the process of liquidating one of his companies was underway, Kavanagh continued, get that gone, get that shit transferred over, get rid of Rockfire Investment, get rid of all this other fucking bullshit. He detailed then his strategy. You take risks, you get in and you get out. He concluded then on Rockfire succinctly, now it's dead, so just let it fucking die. So basically what he's done is, now that serious questions are being asked about these multiple pounds investments, he is letting the companies that signed the original agreements and that were the issuers of the bonds worth many, many millions, that he was collapsing them. I'm not going to say on purpose, but, you know, things haven't gone very well. Rockfire Capital, as far as I know, doesn't exist anymore. And Rockfire Investments, another company, hasn't filed any accounts since 2021. Maybe they have by now, but it's very doubtful.
I do like how this guy has essentially pulled off the same... Well, it sounds like, if all of these allegations are true, it sounds like this guy has pulled off the same fucking scam on Thurrock Council that I had a bunch of people that got pulled on a bunch of people in, like, when I was in year 10 at school, where they spent 200, they pulled like 200 quid together to buy some, like, a big thing of weed off of someone, and it was just like a bit of wood with some, like,
yeah, like a block of oregano.
Weed in a box, yeah. All in the same council. Like, you just love to see development in something like this.
Yeah. So again, like I can only speculate at this point, and I genuinely don't know this for sure, but it looks very closely like the rug is being pulled out from underneath by Thurrock Council. So, however, that doesn't, of course, it doesn't erase the fact that the bonds and the debt of £655 million, they do still exist. Those were transferred, legal ownership was transferred to 3 more companies, also controlled by Liam Kavanagh, but this time out of the Isle of Man tax haven. I'm not stating anything, that's just that's just the truth. These things are based in the Isle of Man, which is a known tax haven. So the one that now owns that has issued the bond and is therefore responsible for paying back the interest as well as the principal at some point is a company called Toucan Energy Holdings 1. Not to be confused, of course, because that's an easy thing to do with Toucan
Energy Holdings, this one. Toucan Energy Holdings, final.
No, with Toucan Energy, which was the company that serviced the solar farms. They're not the same things, they just bear strikingly similar names. Make of that what you will. Again, I'm reading now from a piece in the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. Liam Kavanagh has indicated that what they say is missing £138 million had been properly recorded on the balance sheet of Toucan Energy Holdings 1, a company whose first set of accounts has been overdue since April, and that it would be wrong to suggest that the money had to be invested in the solar farms and that there were no specific terms as to how the funds would be used. So maybe he's right, and maybe the contract written on the 140 million was so shit that he could do whatever he wanted with the money because the terms and conditions weren't stipulated. Maybe it was like that because we haven't seen those specific documents surface yet. So as it stands at the end of last year, so at the end of 2022, when everything was like running towards bankruptcy, if Thurrock Council, I keep wanting to say county council, but if Thurrock Council wanted its money back from Liam Kavanagh and whatever company is currently holding the series of bonds, at least one of which is an incredible name, by the way, is called Perpetual Power Holdings. I think that's also based on the Isle of Man.
I mean, that's just fucking tempting fate, isn't it?
That's a very Andrew Tate-ass name for a company. Like,
in this council, we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
So in order to like get the money out of these bonds and get like the actual cash money back, the only way to do that would be to sell off the underlying asset, which is the solar farms. But as I said before, if you did that tomorrow, you would probably record a loss of £200 million. So that's like where about £665 million went from Thurrock County Council. And just very briefly, just as a side little amusement, this was not the only strange investment that was made by Thurrock Council at the time and approved of, or at least signed off by Sean Clarke, so far as I know. At least another £94 million was tied up in an investment in a company called the Just Loans Group, which was a lender.
Just loans, nothing to see here.
Pretty much. It was a lender that provided funding to businesses unable to raise money through traditional means. So these were either too risky for banks in a zero interest rate environment, I might add, or they were unable to raise it for other reasons, which is...
Loan Sharks Incorporated.
Possibly. We can't say that for sure. This is
sleeping with the fish's capital.
The company went bust last year, June 2022, and the councils estimate that its losses on Just Loans Group, again, 94 million invested, its losses will be 65 million pounds.
These guys just can't catch a break, can they?
Another investment is small fry in comparison, but just to round it off, just so you have a really good idea that it wasn't just one thing with this one guy. This is from the BBC. Other investments included £19 million lost in a deal with a company that supplies eco-friendly generators to leisure centres, as well as £14 million written off after the collapse of a wood chip boiler business. So more green energy stuff, but, just not quite as successful.
Just a real mistake to even bother trying at this point. You just need to get on that naughty oil shit.
Well, I mean, I say green energy.
Invest in a moral and respectable company like Shell or BP.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk moral and respectable, it turns out that this company where they lost 90 millions on eco-friendly generators, according to to a different piece in the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, that generator company didn't actually do any green energy or installed any boilers. Instead, it turned itself into a credit company, which then made a series of very bad loans and went bust, taking the £90 million from Thurrock Council.
Thurrock Council is just a council that is determined to find the scammiest fucking middlemen on God's earth. It is truly staggering how awful these investments are and how awful these fucking people are.
Yeah. So in terms of if you're wondering now, that's one hell of a way to run a railroad, and that's a lot of money for, again, a council with an operating budget of about £150 million. So first off, it turns out that the total debt of Thurrock Council isn't just in this solar farm thing. It includes all the other stuff we were just talking about. The actual total, it depends on which reading you do. The latest figures that I read is about £1.5 billion that Thurrock Council borrowed from different sources. And we'll get into what those are.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So that's, by the way, if it's a billion and a half, that would be like at least £500 million more than any other council has like capital invested with. Like they are up there with like a bullet. They're number one with like a gold star in terms of how much money they borrowed from all over the shop. And again, let me read you from this is the Bureau again. This is incredible because they actually go on interview with Finance Director Sean Clark. In an interview at the time, he, Sean Clark, described a bizarre arrangement involving dozens, if not hundreds of short-term loans, many as short as a month in length, with the effect that the council was in a perpetual state of borrowing from one local authority to repay another. Piecing together data in obscure spreadsheets revealed Thurrock had borrowed from at least 150 other councils.
This guy is running Thurrock Council like I play fucking Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. This is fucking staggering.
I mean,
making up a shortfall of like hundreds of thousands of pounds every fucking month by just opening a loan for like 2 years, but like, with actual fucking money. Amazing.
I mean, he's doing like the personal finance equivalent of using one credit card to pay off the debt on another. Yeah. Like that's literally what this is. It's truly incredible. However, it gets even more incredible because you think like, wow, 150 other councils. What the fuck were they up to? Again, let me read you from the article. When contacted, some of the biggest lenders to Thurrock Council said they had not even asked what the loans were for because the arrangement meant they got their money back with interest after a short period of time. It was effectively a source of apparently limitless public cash to which Kavanagh's companies would indirectly give an access.
Oh man,
seems legit.
Yeah, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth, do you?
Quite so, because again, let me read you from, this is the same article, again from the Bureau, and this is after they dropped their first story about the very questionable links with this guy and these solar farms and the real question of the value. So this is after that, right? This is after that, and this is, if you have like half a functioning brain, you would have read that piece and said, fuck me, I'm a counselor. I might be in some way, if not legally, then at least morally responsible for this. Again, let me read you what happened instead. After the Bureau's first story, some of Thurrock's councillors encouraged Sean Clark to borrow and spend even more, with one declaring during a public meeting, "The beautiful thing about this plan is that it's someone else's money." Another councillor said elected members were not supposed to question decisions taken by council officers.
It really is sad to see the death of Thatcherism in a Tory-run council.
Yeah, I was just going to say, isn't the problem with that it always runs out?
Well, I mean, in the end it did, and like I can't stress enough. If you read the article, and I will try to remember to put them up in the show description. They have the video where this guy is saying the beautiful thing about this is it's somebody else's money. However, on top of like this Byzantine structure of like short-term loans from 150 other councils, Thurrock Council had also borrowed about £350 million from the Treasury itself. From a pot that should be used for like big infrastructure projects. Apparently that was also fine. It also, like, this non-questioning of council finances by councillors, and as far as I've understood it, when the Labour opposition asked for details and said what the fuck's going on, they didn't get answers. So this non-questioning and the involvement of Liam Kavanagh in particular continued even after there was a High Court trial that I referenced earlier, involving yet another Kavanagh company where he was accused of misleading the council into paying a $5 million arranging fee, which has also not been surfaced since. Again, this is from another article by the Bureau on that court case. A judge later concluded that he, Liam Kavanagh, had failed to include the payment in a document outlining one of the solar farm investments, which cast serious doubt, words of the judge, as to whether or not it was a genuine fee for arranging the deal or a covert extraction of funds by Mr. Kavanagh for his own benefit. I think that's counsel for opposing counsel. Again, Liam Kavanagh and his lawyers at Carter-Rock deny all wrongdoing in this and all in all other cases. So if you're wondering, how will Thurrock Council get its money back? Apart from the fact that the solar farms are not worth the money that's printed on the bonds, and a number of their other investments have just collapsed and gone into bankruptcy? The answer is definitely not. However, in the case of these solar farms, it gets even better because the arrangements between them, between Thurrock Council and the various entities with the name Rockfire in it, are written in such a way that a lot of them, when it comes to like actually clawing back money in case of, alleged fraud or something, are not enforceable. Like there's too many loopholes in them that like you can walk out of it. This includes, I'm not going to get too technical, by the way, but when contracts get this big and there's this money involved, there's usually somebody involved, a party called the security trustee. That's supposed to be the entity, like it says. It's the trustee in case something goes wrong. There's a security that is supposed to be allowed to get you your money back in case of alleged fraud or something. The security trustee in this case, the loans relating to the solar companies, was a different company, imaginatively titled Rockfire Security Trustee.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Rob.
Hey.
So if you're wondering, look, none of us have a high opinion about councillors themselves. So how did the council prove this? Again, this is according to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. Sean Clark, the finance director, preferred to brief the leaders of the three political groups in private, unminuted, and undocumented meetings. So nobody knows how this got approved. Because they literally didn't keep the fucking minutes.
Yeah.
So, like, again, we don't know, but the fact that it took like 3 years and several legal tribunals for the Bureau of Investigative Journalism and Gareth Davies to get their hands on, like, not even all of them, but just a slice of the relevant files is probably a pretty decent indicator that a lot of people inside the council and inside the executive are less than forthcoming about the details of what went on in the previous decade, to put it mildly.
I mean, I'm going to try and phrase this uncharacteristically in a way that isn't like, committing a libel, but would you take minutes that were essentially like mycrimes.txt?
No, probably not.
Who's the leader of the fucking council? Is it Stringer Bell from The Wire?
So, like, for reasons I would want to get into at the tail end, there is going to be like an official government investigation into all this shit because like now everything's blown up, right? So has not seen the light of day yet, but we do have an interim report prepared by Essex County, which went into like which did like a first sort of tour of the disaster site and are formally involved in like getting Thurrock Council out of the shit. Essex County,
yeah, I think.
say,
I just want to add quickly. I think so. Essex County Council has basically, slapped Thurrock Council's hands away from the fucking PlayStation controller and taken over, like the actual important running of the area because they fucked it so royally.
Yes, very much so. So this is from an interim report. I'm just citing a little bit. Again, we haven't seen final versions. In terms of what was going on inside the building with Sean Clark, the councillors, who approved of what, etc. Furthermore, there was no reporting of the operation of the powers devolved to Sean Clark, nor was any other mechanism deployed to either identify or challenge what he was doing. There was no effective separation of roles. There was no involvement of internal audit in the program, and resourcing of this function is in any event woefully inadequate. The Corporate Risk Register reported the highest risks and opportunities. The only visibility of the investment program at a corporate level was as an opportunity, not as a risk. And indeed, we can find no understanding of the complexity of the program that would have involved proper risk management. There was no consideration of the skills and resourcing requirement needed to run this program properly, and advice from Treasury Management advisors given in 2018, remember, those were the guys who wrote the letter and then was sacked, was not only ignored, but their contract was then terminated. So, what the fuck
lads.
Anybody was doing inside the building is fucking anybody's guess.
I mean, it is. I think something stinks. I think it's fair to say, like, absolutely reeks of something or other. Which
it certainly. I mean, it could also, and we've talked about like local councils before. It could also just be like massive fucking stupidity and people being dazzled by doing green investment and just money flying out the door because the people involved are credulous rubes. Like I'm not discounting that as a possibility because
I mean, yeah, it would
councillors.
It wouldn't surprise me if the guy had just gone in and said green energy, tech, new jobs, and they've gone, oh yeah,
sung a song about a monorail.
Yeah, we can finally put Basildon on the map.
Right. So this is sort of before we move to like sort of wrapping this up and seeing like where all the players are now and what's going on today in Thurrock. I should stress that like while Thurrock Council may be like pretty singular in like how stupid they were with regards to like one guy and his solar farms, they really are not the only ones. Surrey Council is either broke at the moment or almost broke from a, not solar farm, but similar related string of really bad real estate investments. Croydon Council has gone bankrupt for the third time last year and may need to sell off its libraries, community hubs, as well as a retail park to pay off the debt this time. Slough Council in Berkshire also went bankrupt due to what it called historic accounting errors, as well as excessive borrowing to purchase land and properties. Northampton County Council was actually abolished in 2021 after making a series of very dumbass investments in property.
My county council is crying out for freedom. Please just allow me to build a council house. No, you must invest in stupid investment property portfolios.
But is it any wonder that like this stupid country, like I've often wondered about the UK, right? Especially in the last couple of years, like how is it possible that the housing market keeps growing despite the manifest insanity of everything and people not being able to like buy houses anywhere and landlords being fucking scum of the earth and all the stuff that we talk about on this pod on a regular basis. And I always thought like it must be majority, and maybe it actually is, that like so much of what is left of personal wealth in Britain is so trapped in the housing market that like if it deflates, then people will like actually start fucking rioting. But now I'm thinking,
I mean that is just what the British economy is. It's a huge services sector and a bunch of like a small gang of very rich people trading a bunch of poorly insulated houses amongst one another while the price just inexplicably rises above inflation every year.
I mean, for sure, but what I hadn't seen until I was reading all this is like, and what I still don't know because I'm not a member of the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, is like how much council money is sloshing around in like these speculative real estate investments in like luxury flats, and again, on a positive reading for them to just make up for like the shortfalls that they've experienced in the last decade in terms of budget. Like how many billions of pounds, if Thurrock Council, to be fair, they were like pretty spectacular, but if they plowed in $1.5 billion, how many more, like there are 333 councils, I think, in the whole of the United Kingdom. Like how many more billions are out there in terms of just like council investments, and how much does that hook them into like the private real estate market, whether commercial or personal? Like it's wild if you think about it. Like how much? I mean,
this is the ultimate goal of like a neoliberal state, is it not? To just have rather than investing in things that people actually use, it's fucking MacGuffins that just fucking line the pockets of some fucking weird guy who owns a bunch of companies that all seem to have the same name but do supposedly different jobs.
I mean, it's just it's absolutely wild. Anyway, I wanted to close out this episode by doing a little sort of where's everybody now kind of review. Some people, as you will imagine, made out better than others. Like I said, Thurrock Council has formally gone bust, Section 114, at the end of 2022, with a loss so far of established losses so far. This will probably increase in the coming years of 275 million on the investments made. And as a response, like I said, under Section 114, you have to cut everything that is not deemed essential. It's going to have to severely take the axe to all its budgets to meet the debt payments, because it is legally on the hook for all of those, as well as provide all its central government mandated services. Undoubtedly, that's going to lead to massive job cuts at the council itself, as well as big losses to its budget. I think this is from The Guardian. The potential sale could already include 10,000 council homes.
Jesus Christ.
Dropped into the hands of the private sector.
Knowing what, knowing where those I know where a good whack of those council houses are going to be, and like they're going to be in places like Pitsea and around that area. Like those are people who desperately need those fucking houses to be affordable.
Yeah,
and they're just going to be turfed out at best, maybe, or just had their rent jacked up.
I mean, if they sold it to the private sector, I'm going to go ahead and guess that, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. And also, it's like, none of those people, like, presumably wanted Thurrock Council to do insane shit like this, like, in return for not having a small increase in their council tax. I'm going to go ahead and that's, I'm
gonna laugh when the Tories fucking walk in their 2/3, like, majority again in the council.
In a particularly like heartbreaking example, this is again from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. The town's Thameside complex. I don't know, maybe Alistair, you know that?
The town. I don't know what town that is referring to specifically.
I think it's a Thurrock. It's like a big building that includes a library, a theatre, a local museum. This has already been designated as surplus to requirement and will probably be sold to a developer. So apart from providing a desperately needed like quasi-public space for like cultural and social events, the complex also serves as pretty much the only local safe space for the LGBT community in Thurrock, as well as providing meeting spaces for disabled people in the BAME community, and so on and so forth. So the people already in most distress are going to get turfed out of their meeting rooms.
Yeah, and that's I've just looked that up. That's in Grays, very, very working class area. Like these are very these are places that need these kinds of things. Like it wouldn't surprise me if that was like one of if not the only fucking libraries that is in Grays.
Yeah, I mean it's genuinely heartbreaking to see that the results of a couple of guys doing, again, at best, massively stupid idiot fucker moron
deals, Rob. Deals, making money, deals, spending that money to make money. I
mean, the Thurrock Council, by the way, will need to pay, just to service its debt load alone, will need to pay out £130 million. Again,
fucking Christ.
It used to spend 150 million just on all its services, so that's pretty much the entire council budget gone to debt servicing. And the gap projected for next year, for 2024, could be as much as £180 million, which would be the biggest budget gap for any council in the whole of the UK. But don't worry about it. Like, you're all going to be, if you live in Thurrock or the surrounding area, you're all going to be pitching in to help out. Because you remember how I said that, like, if you wanted to raise council tax by more than 2%, you have to hold a local referendum. The Department of Levelling Up and Michael Gove have given Thurrock Council an exemption on that local referendum, and they are allowed to put up council taxes by 10% next year, or this year, I can't remember.
Hell yeah.
So, again, your services are going to get cut to the bone. You're going to pay more for less.
And you pay more for it, yeah.
For not a little less, but for, like, substantially less.
Yeah, that the one safe place for public space for LGBT people in fucking Grays. Goodbye, and you're paying more for the privilege. Fucking
yeah. While your council house has been sold out from fucking underneath you, it's truly like fucking horrendous. It's shocking to talk about it in these terms. Turning to Toucan Energy Holdings 1, you remember that's the current issuer of the disastrous solar farm bonds. They are the ones based out of the Isle of Man. Toucan Energy Holdings 1 has also gone into administration, and buyers are currently being sought for the solar farms, the estimated value of which has gone from 655 million to a current estimate of about 188 million. So a paper loss so far of about 380 million pounds on investment. Again, I should say, through their well-known lawyers, Carter Ruck, Liam Kavanagh has said that he personally had no role in the management of Toucan Energy Holdings 1 and blames current management for the problems. He is not involved in any of that, and that is, as far as we know, the truth. The Tories, by the way, if you're curious, are still in control of the Thurrock Council as of today. And they are actually painting all of this, as well as the Section 114 notice, as a bright and cheerful road to recovery story in order to pay back all the money it has borrowed from 150 other councils, as well as the Treasury and presumably other people as well. It has had to take out yet another loan, sort of, it has consolidated all its loans into one big shiny package.
One easy payment, yeah.
Exactly. Totaling about £850 million from the UK Treasury, with which it will repay the other councils the money it had borrowed from its credit card to credit card spending spree. The estimated interest payment for this £850 million from the UK Treasury is about 4 to 5% per year.
I knew a guy when I worked at the Domino's in fucking Corringham Town Centre who decided to take out a 10 grand loan so that he could just basically spend it all in Amsterdam. I still feel like he got a much better return on that investment than these fucking idiots did.
Yes. I mean, the only thing that we know for sure is that Sean Clarke got some nice lunches in Mayfair out of it. Anything other than that is pure speculation. We will not be engaging
yes.
in.
We all love a free lunch.
Exactly. Once again, we've returned to your sort of main theory of UK politics is, a free lunch. By current estimates, it's going to take Thurrock Council more than 20 years to pay back this $850 million in loans. And by the way, just for the relevant insanity, why is the central government loaning money to another part of the UK government with interest, when the Treasury can, go to the Bank of England and just make the money printer go brr? Like, there's no reason to charge interest. There really isn't.
Because the people of Thurrock need to be disciplined for their mismanagement of their finances.
This is true, and the current Tory council leader, the previous one did step down after all this, a guy called Mark Coxall, is claiming that the problems in Thurrock aren't actually the insane investment strategy and, the wildly out of control spending, but rather that Thurrock Council didn't put up council taxes for years. So because you fuckers didn't want to pay council taxes, they had to, venture out and do insane and crazy shit. Sean Clarke, if you were wondering, has been suspended on full pay. He was paid about £130,000 a year since an urgent government intervention in September, following what the government called grave concerns about the exceptional level of financial risk and debt incurred by the council. So far as I know, he's just sitting at home on full pay. The chief executive, a woman called Lynn Carpenter, was also placed on extended leave. I don't know if she is on paid leave or not. Of course, as I mentioned before, there is going to be an official government report, which we haven't seen yet, but it was supposed to be published last December. It was then, for various, or at least the stated reason that it was pushed back, was legal concerns and people being allowed to have right of response. It still hasn't seen the light of day. This is apparently due to legal concerns, but I shall also say that the overseers are, like you said before, Alistair, the fellow Tory-led Essex County Council, as well as a Tory government. I don't want to impugn motive or anything, but I'm fairly confident we're not going to see the light of day on this report until after the local elections.
We don't want to prejudice investment against Toucan Energy Holdings 1.
No, which might come up with a great idea next.
Yeah, don't trust any company that's named after a toucan. Or any crossings, or anything like that.
Of course, for me, apart from the biggest question, which is, of course, how did any of this happen and why was it allowed to just balloon and spiral out of all control? But my other questions is, so far as I understand it, right, and I may be wrong, but I'm going to be generous here. So far as I understand it, the Labour opposition and the other political parties in Thurrock did actually want to get to the bottom of this and had been asking a lot of questions saying what the fuck is going on, and they were not given the proper answers. Again, that's as how I understand it. But in terms of other people, how did the Treasury, right, were on the hook and had given £350 million in loans to Thurrock Council? Why did nobody at the Treasury say, where's our 350 million? What are you doing with the money? That's just big chunk of money. What I also wonder, what I would really like to know, but that's like the topic of auditing finances in general is something I want to do another day. But like, how did the auditors like approve accounts of Thurrock Council from the beginning of this mess to the end? Well, how did they not flag anything? How did they not, what happened? How did everybody let it get to this point where like some of the last social and cultural links that like some of the poorest people in Thurrock have?
Yeah, but Rob, you're
in a space to be safe. Like,
you're answering your own question, because in whose interest would such a question be raised? Not the interest of the council leader, not the interest of Liam Kavanagh, not in the interest of the council or the county council or the actual government. So of course that question doesn't get asked. Or if it does, or if you do ask that question, you get fucking sacked.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little late now because I think the deadline's passed. But like, we on this podcast have like taken traditionally a very dim view, and certainly in the last few years, of like elections and turning up to vote and all that stuff. But this stuff, right? I'm not saying this is a reason for you to go out and vote, because it's yours and you can draw a dick on it, or you can stay home and play video games and do whatever the fuck you want. But like, there is a reason to occasionally turn up and like vote in someone that you think, even if they're not great, to have someone on the council, maybe it's just a fucking voice in the wilderness to sort of occasionally go, hey, what the fuck is going on here?
Yo, what the fuck is this shit?
And that's, I'm not telling you to vote. It's your fucking thing, but,
Hopefully they've got a lot of good independents running for the council in Thurrock.
Yeah, or indeed in a number of other places. I know that good councils, I was thinking of like a mirror image of Thurrock. Like, I know Preston Council, for example, does fucking amazing shit with like, local supply chains and the whole Preston model thing. So there are good things out there, but, whether or not you have any of them and you think they're worth turning out for is a decision I leave up to the listener. But I don't know. It's not great. But in the meantime, maybe, I'm not saying your vote will make the difference, but, council elections are on thin-ass fucking majorities as is. And, there has to be a better way than Thurrock Council and what they did and what they are doing to people.
If there's ever a public council meeting, consider turning up and just being annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Turn up and be annoying. That's also, I think, one of the mottos of this very podcast. And on that very notice, I'm going to close it out here. You can, if you enjoyed this episode or you like more of it, you can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/praxiscast. It's like £5 a month. We do more content. We really are planning on putting out more than we currently are. There's streams most Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye out on our Twitter feed where we inform you like way hours in advance because we're pro-communicators.
Whole minutes sometimes.
Exactly. There's lovely merchandise because it's spring, so you will need a new wardrobe of bright colors to attract a new mate. You can get those at praxiscast.tmail.com. And I think that's about it. And listen to Peace at Home. It's got some nice music on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.